Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Otaku Phoenix here, and I'm back with a new video. Now, it's no surprise that Gege Akutami, the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen, is a huge fan of the Fate series. He's drawn art of Lancer from Stay Night and has publicly gone out to say several characters, power system, and even the world building itself of JJK was largely inspired by the Fate series. With JJK about to wrap up and Fate Stay Night's 20th anniversary having been earlier this year, I want to do a video talking about the two characters in the best way I know possible. A versus battle, because who doesn't like two characters beating the shit out of each other? So today we have two fan favorites, Okkotsu Yuta, wielder of the Queen of Curses Rika and the generational prodigy, versus Shirou Emiya, the hero of justice and the wielder of unlimited blade work. So, alright everybody, let's get into it.
Stay with me, little bitch, yeah, you know that I'm your man. You be capping like a snitch, no thoughts, no step. 2 hoes, 10 toes, new guap, on them banks, new whip, new chips, new kicks, Jackie Chan, she bad bitch, no bag. I just hit another liquor, she be counting all rest. I be feeling hella rich, no Brian, let's step. About to make another hit, God, bitch, in my life.
At first, Yuta used to be a normal boy, simply spending his days playing about and going to school, and he even fell in love with his childhood friend Rika, with them pledging one day that they'd actually get married. But like all things in anime, they didn't last. Something would claim her, an accident that would bear into his mind forever. But a love as strong as theirs does not simply fade away, and as such, even in death, her soul never left his side. She began to follow him, haunting him for the rest of his days, and as such, she returned in a monstrous form. A form that brought horror to his eyes. Yes, she came back as a giant overpowered worm. Yuta is a very skilled jujutsu sorcerer and a very powerful character in the series. He excels in hand-to-hand combat, as shown where he and Rika fought Geto Suguru, a special great sorcerer, even though he'd only been in that school for around 2 years. Though he did have Rika's assistance, I'm still giving it to him because, well, he controls Rika. Rika is his core spirit that's always with him, and this is insanely impressive. Through reinforcing his body with cursed energy, he was able to fight on par with Yuji Itadori, the latter of which can easily throw large objects such as cars with a single punch. And it's shown that he and Rika can share thoughts with each other. But what makes Yuta so dangerous is his pretty much boundless cursed energy and his ability to copy any cursed technique he witnesses. He also has reverse curse technique, which allows for healing of wounds to the point he can even regenerate lost limbs. As I said before, Yuta's curse technique is mimicry, which allows him to copy any curse technique he witnesses. Originally, he could just copy it by looking alone. However, thanks to losing Rika, he can now only copy it after a certain condition has been met, in which Rika must consume a portion of the owner of that curse technique. But at his prime, it was stated he could copy any curse technique simply by witnessing it. The technique he's copied are Inumaki's curse speech, which allows him to apply restrictions to any individual based on his words and using cursed energy, as he's constantly seen Inumaki use it. And we have a list of all the different applications Inumaki has done using his curse speech. Being explode, get twisted, get crushed, crumble away, don't move, sleep, run away, stop, blast away, die. With die being the deadliest in my opinion. Then he copied Thin Icebreaker, which allows one to wield the sky as a surface, allowing them to use it to block attacks or to increase their force, as they are also damaging the space around the target and not just the target itself. Then he also copied Jacob's Ladder, which is an ability that allows one to nullify any cursed technique, cursed weapon, or even cursed barrier. But it can be tanked based on the cost energy of the opponent, as Sukuna was able to tank it multiple times, but it did do severe damage. So it shows how effective and powerful this is against cost enemies, especially since Sukuna is the strongest cost ever. Speaking of which, he even copied Sukuna's, the king of curses, own curse technique known as cleave and dismantle, which allows him to slice and dice up anything he pretty much wants. He can also create Shikigami or familiars through his strands of hair to distract the opponent. Then he copied a curse technique that allows him to view the reality as manga panels, allowing him to see a few seconds into the future. Then by focusing his immense curse energy into a single point, he can fire it off as an incredibly large and destructive energy blast that was able to overpower Geto, the special great sorcerer's Uzumaki, which is confirmed to be his strongest attack as well, and you can see the damage this one single blast did. He can also block large explosions by focusing his curse energy to shield himself. Now we get to the good stuff. His domain expansion through mutual love, cringy name, a boundary field in which Yuta manifests a landscape filled with katanas, each imbued with the curse techniques he has copied before. However, Yuta does not know which sword holds which curse technique until he himself holds the sword. He can also apply one curse technique to his domain expansion to work passively without his mental inputs. However, he can only do this one at a time, so if he wants to add another passive effect, he has to remove the first one. Overall, Yuta is an extremely powerful jujutsu sorcerer, being in the top 5 in the verse, and is noted as one of the few people with the potential to surpass Satoru Gojo. Anyway, moving on, next we have Shirou Emiya. In a world where magic is real, and there are certain individuals called mages that wield this power, and all mythologies and folklores actually took place, there was a town that was destroyed by a great disaster that claimed the lives of over 1,000 people, with one small boy barely surviving, until he was found and saved by the man who accidentally started set fire. This man adopted him, taught him everything he knows. This man was Emiya Kiritsugu, and he passed on his ideals to his son to become a hero of justice. Shirou would then accidentally participate in a great ritual known as the Holy Grail War, in which 7 mages would summon heroic spirits, beings of great and incredible yet very destructive power, summon all from mythology or even real human history to fight over the Holy Grail, which will grant the victor any one wish. At first, Shirou was considered pretty much a mediocre mage, with him being only able to use 2 forms of magecraft, being projection and reinforcement. And while projection is technically a high-level magecraft, it's not useful in practicality. Basically, think of magical energy that powers spells as clay or plastic. Projection is using that magical energy and shaping it to look like something in order to use it for that thing. But just like you can't use a plastic sword in a real battle, it's pretty much useless most of the time. As such, it's considered a failure. But slowly through the Grail War, we find cracks in this logic for Shirou, because for some reason his projections are able to be used in combat. Not only in combat, they display the abilities that even the original weapons he is trying to copy originally had. That's where we find out that Shirou is not using projection magecraft, but something greater, a unique ability known as tracing. Shirou's tracing allows Shirou to copy a weapon not only in its shape, but he also reproduces the history of that weapon, allowing him to maintain the abilities of that weapon and even the skills and knowledge of its user in using that weapon. As such, he gains any weapon an instant mastery over it. However, it is 1 rank weaker than the original, but by destroying the weapon by overloading it with power, he can return it back to its original strength. As if his abilities weren't impressive enough, Shirou's tracing allows him to bypass one of the fundamental laws of physics. What I mean is, when Shirou projected the sword in the stone Caliban of King Otto, that sword usually requires at least 500 units of magical energy to use, with Shirou only having at most 30. His tracing takes 5 units of magical energy to do, and with his 5 units he created Caliban. But not only did he create it, the hundreds of units of magical energy needed to fire off Caliban also came with the sword, literally violating the law of conservation of energy, in which matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. He is quite literally creating net energy from nothing. Shirou has a multitude of weapons and abilities in his arsenal, such as the sword of the Irish hero Fergus McRoche, which Shirou and Archer use as an arrow due to its destructive power, Caladwogue. Not only does this sword have an immense amount of destructive power, it also has the unique ability of twisting all things in its path, including time and space, making dodging the arrow virtually impossible. Once overloaded with magical energy, it becomes a broken phantasm, which is a one-shot strike meant to destroy the weapon. In this state, it can be akin to pretty much a small missile strike, as it was able to cover 4 kilometers in a single second and cause a massive explosion on impact. Kanso or Bakia, or the twin swords Angmo and Jangie, which have a magnetic pull to each other that causes one to draw the other as long as you hold one of them. Shirou can actually create multiple of them to perform a deadly attack known as a triple link crane wing, in which 3 pairs are made to corner the enemy from all sides. Next, we have one of Shirou's deadliest techniques, 9 Lives Blade Works, which was copied from Berserker Hercules. This was the very technique Hercules used to slay the Linean Hydra. As in, remember that monster from the Hercules Disney movie that every time you cut off its head, 3 more grew back? Yeah, that's the Linean Hydra. That very technique Hercules used in mythology and legend to kill that Hydra, Shirou can replicate it. And in order to replicate it, he first had to copy Berserker's strength, as in the same Berserker that was able to kick pillars and send them flying, creating shockwaves, and throw literal buildings with a single hand. And Shirou was able to replicate this technique. 9 Lives Blade works by creating 8 attacks that are so fast they seem to be simultaneous, each one moving faster than the speed of sound, and then a 9th final strike channeling all that force together in one single blast. And apart from that, you see, the technique was created to kill an immortal creature. As such, it has the ability to outright negate and bypass healing factors and abilities. So technically, the wounds done from 9 Light Blade works can't be healed normally, or even if they can, the healing will be reduced in speed. Then he has the sword of the English hero Beowulf from the Epic of Beowulf, which is an enchanted sword that will continue to chase down its target until the sword is destroyed or the target is destroyed. Therefore, dodging this thing is impossible. You can only block or blow it up. Then he has Ruaias, the shield of the Trojan hero Ajax, which he once used to block a full-powered fronting that had enough power to destroy the entire Fuyuki bridge. We don't know the exact size of the bridge, but we are given a large view of it to see how destructive this would have been if it hits. He also once used Ruaias to block Excalibur, as in the sword of King Arthur's full power release, which, as we know from a previous Fate, mainly Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade works, a blast from Excalibur has enough power to literally destroy mountains. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Caliban, what Shirou has projected, is confirmed able to reach the same level of firepower as Excalibur. However, since it's weaker, it would break with one use. But for Shirou Emiya, that's not a problem. He also has the Dagger Rule Breaker, which allows Shirou to nullify any magical pacts or any form of magecraft whatsoever, including a bond between a master and a familiar, or even any being created from magical energy. Then for Shirou's greatest defensive ability, he has Avalon, the scabbard of King Arthur. Avalon has two uses. One, it allows the user to heal any wound, even regenerate lost limbs, and can bring someone back from the dead as long as magical energy from its user, King Okkotsu, is residing inside of it. But for its second ability, Avalon negates interference entirely, in that no wounds or harm can come to the user. I don't mean it heals, I mean it literally no damage registers to that being. They are technically not even in that plane of existence anymore. Even if the universe itself were to come to an end, as long as that user activated Avalon, they are fine. And since Shirou had Avalon for over 10 years inside of him, it is the one object Shirou can replicate without it becoming weaker by a rank. Then for offense, Shirou Emiya's greatest ability is the Reality Marble Unlimited Blade Work, the true source of his power of tracing and reinforcement. A Reality Marble is the materialization of a person's inner world given form. It's literally taking your own inner world and putting it as a new layer of reality on top of this world, dragging yourself and your enemy inside to battle in your own terms. Unlimited Blade Works is a giant field littered with swords that Shirou has seen, with him being able to control any weapon there and then being already materialized, so he doesn't need to waste time projecting them. He can telekinetically collect any weapon he wants and can instantly replicate the weapon, unlike before in the real world where it takes a few seconds for him to do so. Here, the swords are ready and waiting. However, a Reality Marble takes a lot of magical energy to create, as basically in Fates, the world has a safety mechanism called the counter force, and the counter force hates anything that disturbs the order of the natural world. As such, Reality Marbles which interfere with the natural world are considered extraneous, so the world constantly tries to destroy any Reality Marble that is opened. As such, it requires a large amount of magical energy, because you are literally fighting against the world to keep your Reality Marble opened. However, even if Shirou doesn't open his Reality Marble, he is still capable of projecting multiple weapons in the real world at once. Because you see, what Shirou does isn't actually projection. He is actually just taking the weapons from inside of his Reality Marble and bringing them to this world. However, with this Reality Marble and the plethora of abilities and weapons Shirou has in it, Shirou is counted as one of the few humans capable of keeping up with heroic spirits. So who would win in a battle between these two fighters? Well, that depends on if we're using verse equalization, as in, are we going to equate magical energy and curse energy along with magecraft and curse techniques to each other? Because if so, then the outcome may slightly vary. For one, it would imply that Yuta would be able to copy Shirou's tracing abilities and therefore would be able to replicate any weapon Shirou creates. However, I said implies, as this is not actually true. You see, this is where the nuances of different series start to come into play. Yuta copies curse techniques, which surprisingly are actually engraved in the user's body, but Reality Marbles are different, as magecraft is powered through magic circuits which are engraved in the user's soul. As such, it is something Shirou can only use in and of itself. And even further from that, Shirou's tracing, projection, structural analysis, all of that stuff are not actually magecraft separate. They are limited applications of his Reality Marble. Shirou's singular power is actually just his Reality Marble, which is the projection of his inner world engraved in his soul. Yuta trying to copy that would be like trying to copy an innate domain. It's not something Yuta should be able to copy, because it is specific to that individual spirit, not even their body anymore, but their very spirit. As such, Yuta theoretically shouldn't be able to copy Shirou's tracing. This actually will now give Shirou the advantage, as he gained the ability to see curse spirits, which he normally wouldn't be able to. So, to appease JJK fans, let's remove the verse equalization. Magic and curse energy aren't equated to each other anymore. What would happen? Well, Shirou would actually still be able to fight Rika. You see, one of Shirou's unique abilities is something called structural analysis, as I've said before. It's what Shirou uses to completely analyze anything he sees in an instant. But apart from that, it has an extra use. It also gives Shirou environmental awareness in the sense that he knows when something is out of place, whether physically or even spiritually, allowing Shirou to sense magical objects and even spiritual entities that shouldn't be there. So Shirou would actually still be able to sense Rika if she were present. And we have seen from Unlimited Blade Works, he can even react to attacks from these spiritual entities as well. So yeah, keeping that in mind, there should be no reason that Shirou wouldn't be able to sense Rika trying to attack him in a fight. But let's go back to the verse equalization for a while. If we try and say Yuta can use Jacob's ladder to remove Shirou's projections, because under this logic, Magecraft is the same thing as Curse techniques along with Curse energy and magical energy. Yeah, that would mean that by that definition, Jacob's ladder wouldn't work against Shirou's noble phantasms. Because we know noble phantasms are powerful abilities that can't actually be erased by Magecraft. They may be countered directly as an opposing force, but to outright negate noble phantasms as in they don't work, no, Magecraft in canon to the Fate series cannot do that to noble phantasms. Even Rule Breaker, a noble phantasm specifically made to negate any and all Magecraft, similar to how Jacob's ladder and Angel's technique extinguishment nullifies any Curse technique. It is explicitly noted Rule Breaker cannot erase a noble phantasm, as it is a higher level of existence than regular Magecraft. It is a mystery that surpasses Magecraft. So if once again we use verse equalization, then extinguishment technique will not work against noble phantasms. And even if we don't use verse equalization, technique extinguishment and Jacob's ladder works by nullifying cursed energy, which is energy brought from negative emotions. But magical energy in the Fate series doesn't have a particular alignment. It can have an alignment if the user decides to give it, but on its own it doesn't. Therefore, it wouldn't nullify it. Heck, a lot of Shirou's items are actually holy weapons such as Caliban or Avalon. Therefore, they quite literally have nothing negative in them. So, technique extinguishment, Jacob's ladder would not work against Shirou's noble phantasms. However, theoretically, if we use verse equalization again and Shirou was hit midway trying to project those noble phantasms, then Jacob's ladder could stop him from doing that. Then from there on, it's like I said, they just keep countering each other. Yuta tries to use Cleave or Dismantle. Shirou could just counter it with 9 Lives Blade Work. Yuta makes Rika fire a giant energy blast. Shirou could counter it with Caliban or Colored Book. Yuta tries to use Stinebreaker Eyes to mess with space. Shirou fires Colored Book that's literally known to distort space. Yuta tries to see into the future. Shirou uses Triple Link Crane Wing, a technique that was used to beat Saber, whose instincts give her precognition. Honestly, the only Curse technique I know Yuta has that would give Shirou trouble would be Curse Speech, because he could do a lot of damage to Shirou with that. However, Shirou once again still does have Avalon, which would heal his wounds. Yuta creates Shikigami, Shirou creates Sword Barrel. Like, they just keep countering each other. So we can finally get to what everyone has really been waiting for: the battle of their worlds, Domain Expansion versus Reality Mabu. Now, Shirou's Reality Mabu, sorry for your JJK fans, would be the victor in this. Reality Mabus are just a much higher concept than what a Domain Expansion is. Domain expansions, while very impressive, are more akin to bounded fields in the Fate series. They are a bounded field created over an area in which the user can then manifest certain structures or environments, and have certain effects placed in them, but they only apply for a limited area. However, reality marbles are literally noted to be the highest bounded field possible. This is not taking an area and making it your own. It is overwriting this current layer of existence, the entire world, and replacing it with your own inner world. If Yuta tries to open his domain expansion first and Shirou opens his reality marble inside, Yuta is being dragged into unlimited grade works, and if the two try to clash, remember the law of domain expansion states that the more refined one shall win, and a domain expansion, which is the same as a bounded field versus a reality marble, is not a fight. A reality marble is going to win that. However, there is one major drawback with unlimited blade works, with it being its long ass chant. However, once again, Shirou has Avalon to protect him, and he also has Ruayas, which is a bounded field, and as we know from simple domains, a boundary field around the user can temporarily protect one from a domain expansion. Though Yuta could theoretically use his domain to try and make a hole out of unlimited blade works, like Megumi did for Dagon's innate domain. Unlike Yuta's domain, in which he has to grab the sword to first know the abilities, Shirou knows which sword does which automatically, and not only does he not need to grab it, he can kinetically make these swords attack the opponent, so he never actually has to hold any of them. If he wants to use the sword special abilities, then he has to hold them, but to just charge at the enemy, he can just make them do it with his mind. And Shirou has a lot of these weapons inside, so I doubt that he give Yuta the chance to try and run away. Overall, with all these things being taken into consideration, not to mention even the fact that if Yuta did trap Shirou in his domain somehow, Shirou still has Avalon. If Shirou activates Avalon, even with the domain short hit effects, there is nothing Yuta would be able to do to Shirou while Avalon is active. With that, he could just get in close to Yuta and then fire a Caliban right in his face, and that's the end of the fight. So with all this in mind, there's no way I can see Yuta winning this once he gets to a battle of their reality marbles or domain expansion. So the winner would be Shirou Emiya.